In today's video, we're going to discuss the Stormcast Eternals in the Age of Sigmar. Now, I've done lore videos before on this channel, but I wanted to try something different this time. See, most of my lore videos before, and many of the lore videos that you find for 40k and Age of Sigmar Online, they deal a lot with very specific, events that happened in a faction. You know, these are the so-and-sos and they're from here and they fight for these reasons, and all kind of is very factual based. And while facts are a extremely important part of any army's lore, there's something more to it, right? Facts alone do not make an army interesting. And so what I wanted to do with this lore video is go ahead and give you kind of the facts behind Stormcast Eternals, but then I really want to have a great discussion about why they are so incredible. I'm going to ask up front, if you like this kind of video or have any kind of comments or constructive criticism, go ahead, click subscribe, and leave it in the comments down below. I'd like to start doing these going forward because what I'm aiming to do is kind of give a more in-depth discussion of why, say, the Black Library books are worth reading for these factions. I read all the comments in all my videos, and I try to respond to as many of them as possible, and I use them directly as inspiration for my videos going forward. So let's dig in. Put very simply, the Stormcast Eternals are the demigods, the embodiment of Sigmar in the mortal realms. They are heroes of old, actual people, we assume they're all human, who were taken up in a height of battle or at some pivotal moment in time, taken up to Azir, the realm of heavens, and reforged is the term they use, into this superhuman, not quite deity, demigod level of warrior for Sigmar's army. The battle tome says that each one of them is just a true to themselves hero of legend and has the ability to take on 12 mortals that they used to be. When they go to battle, the thunder's crackling and lightning strikes, and the Stormcast Eternals are then dropped onto the battlefield through lightning, because again, they're sort of this half human-ish, half pure energy of Sigmar, and so they're shot down into the battlefield, and from there they do their wars, fight their battles, but they have to find a new way back to Azir, whether that's through a realm gate, or if they die, their energy is simply zapped straight back home. This obviously makes them a functionally immortal unit, okay, as a fighting force that when a Stormcast Eternal dies, they're zapped back to Azir, where they are then reforged and unleashed again when the time is right. Now, we'll go into a bit further detail later on, but there are side effects to being reforged. But all in all, that's the very simple explanation. Sigmar is trying to reclaim the mortal realms for order by driving back chaos, and so this was kind of his secret weapon, this army of pure heroes and might and magic. And so, they go out and they fight for him and reclaim territories. Now, on the surface, it's very easy to criticize this. They look very simple. They look very, how do I say this? They don't lack individuality. They use helmets that are all just faces, so there's no expressions, things like that. A lot of character is lacking in their facial expressions. There's a lot of criticism about their lack of actual magic use. They do use prayers quite a bit, but there's no real magicians or wizards in the army. People often refer to them as the Age of Sigmar Space Marines, right? That basic troop that's good at everything, but kind of a master of none. And we'll address the comparisons between the Warhammer 40k Space Marines, because I think some of those conversations are valid. I don't want to just dismiss them. But there are a few things that make Stormcast Eternals really, really stand out. So, that is the simple explanation, so let's move into a longer one in case you're still with me and you're still curious. During the Age of Chaos, when things were just going nuts, demons were pouring through, chaos gods were really kind of claiming certain realms for themselves. Khorne loves the Akshay realm of fire, Nurgle realm of life, Tzeentch realm of metal, things like that. Well, as humanity was making their last stands and best defenses and battering down as much as they could, Sigmar came up with a plan. Right, the mortal forces were just not going to repel this kind of demonic invasion all at once. It just wasn't possible. There's too many realm gates, too many battlefields. Every time they get in a fight, Khorne gets stronger because he just loves bloodshed. And so he realized this was not working. So he had a plan. Sigmar locked all of the realm gates leading to Azir. He shut himself in. Then he called his greatest craftsmen and got them all in one place and said, we're going to make an army and we're going to fight back. And so what he did was took the molten core of the world that was from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and he started to make armor and weapons and kind of come up with this plan. And so now he needed warriors. Well, of course, there's some in his ear. There's great people there. But he looked upon the other mortal realms and he saw people making the ultimate sacrifice, leading people in the best way possible, from a sincere heart, from an honest hatred of chaos itself. And so what he started to do was pluck them up. Now, plucking them up sounds really, really trite. A lot of these heroes were in the middle of battles and like defenses and near death and all stuff, and then lightning would strike, and then that person would be gone, and there'd just be a charred ash pile below, so the people just assumed he was dead, right? I mean, why not? There are at least 3 stories of heroes being taken when they were mortals, and they're kind of anticlimactic. Like, there's a battle coming, and then Sigmar just pulls them away out of that. Now, on one hand, this is amazing because now he has an entire army of dedicated heroes they've proven that they're willing and able to do what's necessary to fight chaos. On the flip side, some of these people, because they were people at one point, have lost everything. And then you just took them away from their one chance at vengeance. You see it a lot in tribal communities, especially when more of a first world power is introduced. Right? People want to die with their brethren, and so there is a hint of sadness in the fact that these people were taken from what they might perceive to be their fate, their destiny. If they left, loved ones, children, things like that, they're just taken away. Now they're alive, and everyone they love is dead. Absolutely. Alright, so now he has all these heroes. What does he do with them? Well, they go through a process called Reforging. What this really is it's called the Anvil of Apotheosis, I believe, where you take the hero, lay him down, and then through infusing his power, the lightning power, all that stuff like that, he kind of breaks the hero apart, puts him back together, breaks him apart, puts him together, and just repeats this process until they are functionally this kind of half mortal, half lightning thing. You could almost equate it to possessed or something like that. I mean, I know it sounds chaosy, and that's kind of the opposite of the way we're going, but it is exactly what it seems like, where they have physical forms, they have faces and flesh, and they bleed and stuff like that. But also there's this energy inside of them. When they look at each other, they can see the energy. When they die, they become things of energy and are zapped back to his ear. Not only does this power from Sigmar increase their martial prowess, it equips them with all kinds of weaponry and armor and things like that that function alongside them. When a Stormcast General dies, his armor does not just fall to the ground empty, it zaps back with him. Now, the first Age of Sigmar novels, called the Realmgate War series, depicted Sigmar busting into the scene, and what he would do was strike down with a ton of Stormcast Eternals and open up realm gates, so this way he had a more stable transportation line. Why does he need that? Well, Stormcast Eternals can be fired into any realm. They can be shot down like lightning, they can just appear on the battlefield anywhere they want. However, they cannot be taken back up. This is a one-way trip. So, the Stormcast Eternals, once they land, they need to establish some way to get back home. Of course, realm gates that lead to Azir are the most optimal choice, and so they always get shot down at first near a realm gate back to Azir. They open that, and now we have a stable supply of troops coming in and through. Now, when I first started reading the books, my burning questions were around this scenario, right? How come Sigmar can only shoot people one way? When a Stormcast dies, they get shot back to Azir, so how come they can go back that way, but not through, transportation and things like that? And so what I've kind of pieced together through reading several books, obviously the battle tomes, it takes a great deal of energy on Sigmar's behalf to fire someone into the mortal realms. And there does seem to be a geographical location element to it, like he has to be near them to shoot them down. Obviously, this means it's a one-way trip. So the follow-up question is, how come they can transport back when they die? My understanding, and correct me if you know more than this, leave in the comments below, my understanding is that the last bits of energy in a Stormcast Eternal are reserved for that trip home. It's kind of like how a cell phone, It'll say it's almost dead, but there's always like an extra 2 or 3% just so it doesn't shut all the way down and lose whatever you're working on, right? There's always some kind of reserve battery in the phone, right? So you can kind of use that. And that's kind of the understanding that I have, that yes, they can be teleported through lightning. It's a one-way trip from Sigmar, but if you die, there's always this little backup mechanism built inside you to get you home so that you can do it again. It's also important to note that this ability does not work in the realms of chaos, and there are chaos champions who can keep you from coming home. Also, this is kind of a big thing, it's a large theme in, I believe it's Warstorm, the first book, where they conceptually understand that they'll never die, these Stormcast do, but they've never done it in practice. And so what's revealed in this book is this kind of duality, right? On the surface, Stormcast Eternals look very emotionless, very, very plain. I mean, they don't, they're very impersonal. But as you interact with them and hear them speak, they actually still have all the flaws of humanity. So meaning, they still have fears and doubt and question and things like that. They're discussing, what does it mean to be eternal? What does it mean to die and come back? It's easy to think that, well, those never die, so why would they ever be afraid of anything? But they do have those fears. And we'll get to why those fears are valid in just a second. But hey, they're on the battlefield, right? They can't get home, they open a realm gate, and now they're trying to conquer the local area around the realm gate, secure it, and retake it for Sigmar. All they do is fight. They have a very well-structured and organized system for how they conduct combat. It includes things like scouts, so like the Vanguard Hunters, everything from heavy troops to which are paladins, your standard guy, a liberator, flying troops to scan the area, everything they need for war is there. They fight, they die, and they're sent back to Azir, and the process begins again. They're reforged again and shot back down to the battlefield. And this might seem like the perfect system, right? I mean, Sigmar made a number of warriors. It seems as though he's still recruiting because he abducted Torglug, the Despoiled, I believe, into his ranks. He's actively still creating Stormcast Eternals, which is fantastic, so he'll never run out. But what is the cost of that immortality? Here's what I mean. It happens multiple times in multiple stories where a Stormcast Eternal will come back and be different. And when I say different, there's some strange things that happen after reforging. One of them is just that you lose memories. Again, these are actual people who are taken, and memories define who we are. If you have memory loss, it affects your character, your temperament, everything about you kind of becomes in question. Another one is what it does is it enhances kind of primal instincts that you have. Meaning more aggressive Stormcast Eternals will become more aggressive and more primal. This is the defining feature of some of the chambers in his army. That they are slowly becoming more and more savage. And so this is where I think we're going to stop talking about facts, right? The nuts and bolts of how an army works, and start talking about why those things matter. I'm going to throw a word out there, and this is the word I'm going to use to define why Stormcast Eternals are an interesting army. Okay, you ready? The word is identity. Here's the thing. You have a group of people who have, in some of the books, they're referenced as having full memory of who they were. Some of them, it's very limited. They catch glimpses of it when they're interacting with others. And everything about that person, every time they die, and they're immortal, and they're gonna die, is being slowly chipped away. So what do you have with a warrior whose lifespan of battle will never end? Right? This is never going to end, but every so often they lose a bit and a piece of who they are. What do you have when there's nothing left? And here's the thing, for the Stormcast Eternals who see their brothers come back a little less than what they were before, it's terrifying, because that is a fate worse than death. They could have died as heroes, protecting the ones they love, by the ones they love, but now everyone they love is dead, and they're losing themselves slowly but surely. Rather than a quick death full of glory and honor, now they have to sit here for eternity and slip away, not knowing what they're going to become. They are slowly losing their identity. Also, there are some key things that happen in the Realm Gate War series that bring up the topic of identity. I think the most pointed story to make illustrate my ideas here is Alariel. Now, if you're not familiar, Alariel is the kind of god of life, right? Guran, the realm of life, is all about Alariel. She was found in what's called her winter state, meaning she's just very despondent, very downcast. And so the Sylvaneth, who are her loyal servants and just the people who embody her, much like Stormcast embody Sigmar, got her together. There's a long story, but basically she becomes a seed, and I know this is very strange. She becomes a seed pod, and they bury her in a specific place at a specific time so that, specifically, when she pops back out, she will be a certain way, right? It's kind of quickly on shorthand just told like she was reborn in her war spirit, meaning I'm assuming Alariel kind of operates in seasons, so like she has the downcast one. She also has a war one, which I think would be summer, kind of seasonal chart. She's specifically planted to then reincarnate kind of into this war aspect. And the Stormcast Eternals with her, who are the Hallowed Knights, are very, very perplexed by this because it has huge implications for their worldview. Now, what do I mean by that? Here's the thing. They are a people who are defined by their god. Sigmar is everything. Sigmar is the chant that they use to go to battle. He's the energy in their veins. He's the reason they do what they do. He gave them mission. He gave them power. He actively gives them purpose. And when they die, he is the one who makes sure that they come back. Sigmar is the dude, okay? The god amongst gods. But then there's the Sylvaneth. And the reason that I bring them up is because what does it mean to you when your entire world is defined by your god, and then you see another god who is purposefully made a certain way, right? The Sylvaneth in the experience, they didn't make Alariel in ex nihilo from nothing, but they definitely influenced her by the way that they planted and reaped and where they planted her and the harvest of her coming back to life. They had a huge hand to play in shaping who their god is. Well, the Stormcast don't. No, I mean, what would that mean? What does it mean when a god can be shaped? There's a lot of depth in these kind of ideas because now we're dealing with something much bigger than an emperor who sends out troops. Now we're dealing with creator versus creation. What would the Stormcast Eternals do in this position? I think it'd be a hard question. It's not a matter of loyalty. The Sylvaneth are obviously, with their lives, loyal to Alariel. It's a matter of power, right? They had the ability to shape their god. And the Stormcast Eternals, I don't know what they would do because that's such anathema to their worldview. And I think it was a fascinating story where they had to confront this idea, right? Who are we, right? It's easy to look around you and say, oh, we're all just mortals. We're all just nothing compared to the gods, the pantheon. But then when you see that those things can be influenced, can be turned, can be tricked, can be beaten, can be taken down, can be captured, it just messes with you psychologically when your whole world, everything who you are, is built in them. Not only that, but then you're also dealing with chaos on a regular basis, and while chaos is, it's very obviously evil, right? Let's be honest, they don't sugarcoat it, it's very black and white. Nurgle is kind of more grayer because he's a nice guy, it's whatever. But they are dealing with these people, right? And they kill a demon, and the demon energy flows back to the chaos realm. And then they see their buddy get killed, and his energy flies back to his ear, and you think to yourself, am I terribly different? Of course I am, right? I'm a hero. I'm a good guy. But then from the more deep thinking of these guys, they think, well, no. The Chaos Demons are an extension of the Chaos God's will. What are the Stormcast Eternals if not that for Sigmar? Now, I'm not supposing that there's going to be some big book plot twist where the Stormcast Eternals are actually demons and Sigmar is actually a Chaos God. I'm not suggesting that. What I am suggesting, though, is that these characters in this book, these series of books, have a conflict of identity with what they are seeing around them. So much of their lives are invested in their god. Well, gods can be changed. They can be tricked. Sigmar was tricked with Galmaraz. They can be captured and beaten. They can become despondent and give up. They can see that other gods and deities use mortals as tools, much like chaos gods use, say for example, the Nurgle Rotbringers, which are so infused with Nurgle's power, just like Stormcast Eternals are with Sigmars, that they have incredible strength and incredible abilities. Why would I feel different? The truth is, there's no reason why they would. And that's that kind of terrible situation, that dreadful situation of identity, is what makes the Stormcast Eternals such an intriguing army. Coupled with the fact that on the outside they look so impersonal. And I'm really curious to meet some writers and figure out why they chose that they look so stoic and impersonal and just lifeless, but inside they are full of questions and almost doubt, not necessarily about doubt about Sigmar's mission per se, but about their role in this universe. It's fascinating, the kind of dichotomy they have between what they are and how they look. And that is kind of honestly the lore that I wanted to present to you today, like why these people are so incredibly interesting. Yes, there are cool things about them factually, being reforged and coming back and being a hero and the consequences of reforging and what that means. But the real, I think, meat of the lore of this army is identity. Now, really briefly at the end here, I wanted to address kind of the elephant in the room, and that is many people just assume that these are the fantasy versions of Space Marines from 40k, and there are comparisons to be made. However, I wanted to kind of dive in and kind of address some of them, because if you are new to this and you're trying to understand why they're different, this could be very beneficial for you. One thing is that Space Marines from 40k are taken when they're children, prepubescent, okay? I guess into puberty a little bit, but in that kind of ballpark, very, very young. And they are done all kinds of surgeries and enhancements, gene therapy, things like that. So when they're done with their indoctrination, they're ready for warriors, they are fully fledged adults, but they have not lived human lives, right? They don't live like other people. They are so detached from humanity that they serve it, but they don't really like identify with humanity on a personal level. Conversely, the Stormcast Eternals were full humans. Some of them lived to late adulthood. They had families, many of them. They served their country and their kings. They fought well. They were kings. They were faithful. They had defining features about them. They had entire lives of memories and a wealth of knowledge, and then were taken. So they still have this like massive amount of information and values to go with them, making them far more human, I would say, in air quotes, than Space Marines. It's easy to say that, both of them are just bigger versions of humans, and that's simply not true. Space Marines are surgically enhanced with gene therapies also and things like that, whereas Stormcast Eternals are still functionally human. However, they're so infused with the power of a deity, a direct deity, not just like the Emperor is our god in a religious sense, but like an actual god, that it has a dramatic effect upon their physiology. Others contest that they're the same because they both serve like the kind of the god king emperor type, trope, I would say. Whereas in 40k, I think there's a lot of rich narrative behind the emperor, meaning he didn't want to be a god. He specifically was against theology in general when he was alive, and then people being people, and kind of raised him up to godlike status, but he doesn't really do any miracles. He kind of just sits there because fundamentally it's a very kind of nihilist truth in the world that there are no gods except for the chaos ones. Conversely, in Age of Sigmar, no, there's actually a pantheon. I mean, there are a collection of actual gods. There's Gorkamorka, Sigmar, Alariel, Nagash, what's the Malekith, whatever his form became, and the chaos gods as well. So the realities of who those deities are in their systems are very, very different, and so the warriors for them are also very different, right? Your average Space Marine has never met the Emperor, heard his commands, and gone out and fought a holy war, whereas the average Stormcast Eternal has seen Sigmar at some point, like, walking through the lines, whatever, heard his commands, got invigorated by him, and went and fought. And those are very different on your worldview. And those are the main differences I wanted to share, and that's just because on the surface level it can look the same, but I really think there's a lot of difference and depth to each one of them separately, and when you really dive in, they just are so striking on their own. Thank you guys so much for listening. I miss doing these lore videos. I want to get back into them. I kind of took a little hiatus from them because I need to get some material saved up, but I'd love to start doing them again. If you enjoyed this type of lore video where I kind of more went into the abstract and why these armies are interesting rather than like sticking to the factual things, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I use all your comments for inspiration, and I love to respond to as many of them as I can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and happy wargaming.